So according to Audible, I've been reading for about 1 month, 29 days, and 23 hours. That's over 1,400 hours, not tracking the PDFs I read, digital books, physical books, and also YouTube books I basically listened to, and just a lot of books overall. The point is, I've done a lot of reading. In over 6 years, reading has affected me so much to the point where before I started reading, was about like 19 years old or so, I took a personality test. And I've taken a personality test like this year and a year back or so, and my entire personality has changed. Like literally, like I no longer have the same personality, the same beliefs, the same persona. Overall, I'm a completely different person. And to me, whenever you read, it's like a cheat code. You get to avoid a bunch of problems because you learn them from somebody else. I've been able to achieve financially what it takes someone 65 years of work, well, 40 years of work to actually accomplish, and not just what they achieve, but double. I'm not saying that to show off, but I'm telling you that when you focus and concentrate on one problem and you go heavy and deep into it via reading, it helps you out a lot. Now, obviously, I've learned a lot of stuff, but overall, there are 3 core lessons I want to share with you guys in this video that I think will give you some value. And if it does, leave me a like. On top of that, if you're new to the channel, subscribe to the channel, hit the bell so you get notified because I have more content on the way. Now, the very first thing, guys, the first lesson that I learned is basically when it comes to reading, when it comes to life, self-help, all these books, the one thing is just I think about my head like a filing cabinet. You ever seen that movie by Pixar, Inside Out, where you have people inside your head and one is like an emotion, the other one's another emotion? I love Pixar, but I love cartoons. I never mentioned that. I love them, okay? But overall, the idea of that show is that you have little people in your head that kind of make things work and so on. And the way I see it is you have people in your head and they basically just are in charge of putting information in and taking information out. Now, whenever we're young and we're very, very young, we learn so much. There's so much information being put into your brain. You go to, what is it, kindergarten, then middle school, then high school, then college, and you're constantly just devouring a bunch of subjects and learn different things, although a lot of it is just trash, but you learn stuff, okay? That's the idea. Let's not judge the educational system here, not that video, but the point, it's trash. But you do learn a lot of stuff, okay? And that's awesome. But the minute most people just graduate, the learning just stops, the filing stops, they remain what they had before, and those filing cabinets become so rusty to the point where people are just in denial when it comes to changing their beliefs. Now, obviously, this story is fictional. Don't go searching in your head for people. They're not there, okay? But what I do believe is that my job in this life, and I kind of stole this idea from Charlie Munger, is kind of like, I just have one job. I want to basically wake up and go to sleep just a little less stupid, okay? Now, here's why I say just a little less stupid, because you will always be stupid in the sense that you will never get all the knowledge of this world. And if you go ahead and you read Ezekiel, I can't pronounce it, but here it is.
Ecclesiastes.
If you read this book in the Bible, it kind of puts into perspective like how life actually works, okay? You can basically spend an entire life learning, you'll never learn enough. You can spend an entire time working, you'll never finish your work, okay? Like, it doesn't end, but the point is, it doesn't mean you have to basically be stupid for the rest of your life. It just means you constantly keep learning and you love learning. Like, I crave learning every single day because via learning, I've been able to just remove a lot of ignorance and a lot of things I just basically just grew up with, thinking that this is the way life is, it will always be like that. And a lot of those ideas come from your parents, your environment, and then you start reading and learning and devouring information. You kind of see like, oh, well, that's not true. It's not true that money makes someone evil. It's not true that I can't make a lot of money because I'm poor. It's not true that I'm stupid. It just basically means I just don't know something. And to me, learning and reading is just, for example, adding new information in and just taking out some of the ignorance you had before. And when I say stupid, like just go to sleep, like not, it's because once you learn a lot, guys, what you learn is that you know nothing. It's like what the philosopher kind of said, right? He says, the only thing I know is that I know nothing. And when you hear that, it sounds stupid. And then when you learn enough, you're like, I still don't know anything. And that's the crazy thing. And to me, it's very exciting. Now, number 2, guys, and the second thing I learned from reading all these books is that there is not a single new problem on this earth anymore. Like, when you think about the Bible, it's over 3,400 years old, according to the little Google search that I basically did, and you shouldn't trust it. But the idea is that every single problem, when it comes to money, when it comes to people, when it comes to life, when it comes to depression, when it comes to this and that and this and that, every single problem has been encountered before in the human experience. And although we might see it, for example, in different shapes and sizes and whatever you want to call it these days, the answer is they've been solved before by somebody else that's experienced them before. So the idea is, when you see yourself and you see your weaknesses or you see your strengths, whether you want to strengthen your strengths or whether you want to strengthen your weaknesses, the idea is there is a book. There is a person, there is information out there with someone that went through what exactly you went through, wrote a book about it, and gave you the solutions. When I didn't know anything about money and I wanted to become better at money, I read books about money that by people that basically made a lot of money and made a lot of mistakes. I can't even tell you how many mistakes I've avoided just by reading books, because guess what? Somebody on their way made a lot of mistakes and they warned me. It's like whenever I read Proverbs in the Bible and I hear Solomon saying, you want to avoid this and you want to avoid that and you want to avoid this and that, I'm like, oh, okay, I already messed up a few times, but this I'm definitely going to avoid. It's the same thing whenever you read, for example, a self-help book, or whenever you read a good business book, whenever you read, for example, even a fiction book sometimes. When you read these books, you see all these problems and issues and mistakes and errors and judgment that people basically made, that now that you have the information, you can basically avoid. If I hadn't read all those books, honestly, I would have made mistakes that could have basically wiped me out at times. But because I had the information prior to getting started, I knew to actually avoid it. And that works super good. By the way, whether it's the Bible, whether it's self-help books, whether it's business books, relationship books, whether it's personality books, whether it's, for example, science books, whatever subject it is, the point is there is a book on it. There is someone that is definitely most likely smarter than you are. And the whole goal is, one mistake that I did make when I was reading a lot of books is, whenever you start reading a lot, you can become more like a sponge, and you have to be careful, because when you're a sponge and you just basically just grab people's ideas without really deconstructing them, you can kind of become influenced very easy. So one thing I learned to do is I listen, but I make my own decisions, and I have my own thoughts, I have my own personality, and whether I make an error, make a mistake, I'm fine with that. I can live with it, but be aware of that. Just because something worked for somebody else doesn't mean you have to do it the exact same way. Just because somebody avoided something doesn't mean you also have to avoid that same exact thing. The point is, use common sense, okay? And guess where I learned that from, okay? Guess where I learned that from? Can you believe where I learned that? I learned that little bit of information by reading over 700 pages of a book called Security Analysis by Benjamin Graham and David Dodd, which is a book about finance and money. But I've learned a lesson about use common sense and don't just follow people for following people in this book. And by the way, sometimes you'll read books. This is more information for you guys, okay? Sometimes you're going to read a book and it's going to suck. But most books suck, okay? You learn that as you get along. Most books are stories, and this is people sharing different things. And most books just have one or two or three, maybe four. That's a very rare book that has four really good ideas in it. But most books just have one or two great ideas in it. But those one or two great ideas can change your life forever. And that's why the third thing that I learned is knowledge without application means absolutely nothing, okay? I could tell you I've read over 2,000 hours worth of books, 10,000 hours worth of books, and guess what? If I had never applied any of the stuff I learned, it would not matter. You know, one of the books I spend most of my time reading right now is probably the Bible, and it's because it's a living word. I'm also a Christian, and this stuff really matters to me a lot. I'm very passionate about it. But overall, like you read whatever you want to read. It's just letters. But if you don't put it into action, you don't put it into practice, it won't make any sense. You know how many books I read on finance and money? And if I never actually started investing, if I never actually started budgeting, if I never started a business, if I never failed and tested different things out, it wouldn't matter. Knowing where the gold is, when I say gold, I mean like the actual commodity of gold, like, you know, like gold itself. Knowing where gold is and not going over there to dig it and to mine it doesn't make a difference, okay? You gotta be able to actually put what you learn in practice. And understand this, okay? Again, results are not guaranteed. You know, one thing is, you hear this a lot in a lot of self-help books, which is basically, if it worked for me, it's gonna work for you. And that's not true, okay? Sometimes things that work for somebody else, they will not work for you, but they will in some way make you a little bit better than you were the other day. That's the benefit. The big picture here is to realize that life is not about the destination, it's about the journey. And just that little sentence, when it clicks in your mind, it changes everything. You know where I learned that? I learned that by running over 4.5 hours in a marathon. That life is not about the finish line, because once you get there, that lasts about 10 seconds, that excitement. But those 4.5 hours, that's where life is. Well, that's where the run is. That's where the excitement is. But life is in the living of life. Life is in the actual process of testing things out, believing in something, having relationships, okay? That's where life is. And if you don't actually put things into action, it won't make a difference, okay? And by the way, there is one more thing I do want to say here. It is better sometimes to read one good book 12 times a year than to read 12 different books every single month. And here's why. Because sometimes a lot of ideas just confuse you. And whenever you're trying to get started on something, you learn something else, you switch back up to this, give yourself time to put things into action and to see things actually happening. You know, when I met Gary Vee for the first time, well, for the only time, he told me, you gotta put your head down, you gotta focus, and you gotta work hard. And he always said in his book, you gotta give ideas at least 18 months to see if it works, if it doesn't work, and then you pivot. But people that basically just read a book every single day or every week or whatever, I know people that read more than me. And it's like, you know a lot, but you don't do anything. It's better, you can do so much better than me just by knowing one great book and just basically, you know the Bible more than me, and you've practiced the whole thing, you'll be a lot better than I am. But the point is, just knowing is useless. You have to apply what you learn. And that's the whole thing. So guys, overall, just to summarize here and give you guys a full picture again, number one is life is about learning something new every day and just trying to remove a little bit of the ignorance. And that's what I've learned via reading so much. Number two is no problem that you're having is new. Somebody wrote a book on it. You can basically learn about it and you can try different things out and you can test it out for your own life. And number three is knowledge without application is basically worthless. And that's very true. But guys, overall, that is it. That is all I have to give you. 15 hours later, and this is, well, 1,500 hours. I don't even know how many hours I've spent reading. I spent a lot of hours reading. But the point is, you know what I did, guys? To help me like learn to read, honestly, first I have Audible. So if you want to use Audible, I'm not sponsored by Audible, but I have a link down below. When you sign up, you get 2 free books, and I also get money, so everybody wins. But I use Audible as my replacement for nonsense. So when I used to spend time listening to music, I don't listen to music anymore. Just like sometimes like in the morning. But when I used to spend time listening to music, I replaced it with books. When I spend time in the gym, put some books on. When I spend time running, put some books on. I just basically replaced like all the empty time, and I allotted it with books, and it helped me out a lot. It changed me forever, and I'm very grateful for all the men and all the women that and also just people overall that took the time to write those books and teach me things that would have cost me a lot to learn via experience. But that is it. That is it, okay? Comment down below book, so I know you made it all the way to the end of the video. Also comment down below your favorite books. And by the way, I almost forgot this. If you made it all the way to the end of the video, this is good because I always leave out something I want to share with you guys. Remember when I told you it's better to read some books over and over again than to read, for example, different books all the time? Here are the 5 books that I basically read almost every single year. And that's first, The Richest Man in Babylon. That book changed my life financially, and I read it every single year, at least 2 to 3 times. Also the Bible. I'm constantly reading the Bible. Every single morning I try to read the Bible, because there's so much great information in there. And it's also the living word, and I'm also a Christian. Now, number 3 is I also read Stop Acting Rich by Thomas J. Stanley every single year, because every single year I want to remind myself that, hey, all those people on TV, on YouTube that look like they're rich, they're not really rich, most of them. And you don't want to pretend to be that because you'll lose what you have. And here's what the rich people actually do. Number 4 is The Psychology of Money. That book teaches me that basically not every decision that you basically make is going to be numbers, but it's going to involve emotions. And emotions is very important when it comes to playing this money game, because it's all about timing the game. And you want to spend as much time in the game as possible, so you got to make good decisions that are going to keep you in the game. And number 5 is The Alchemist. The Alchemist is one of the only books I've read that is actually based, well, that's that. I told you, The Alchemist, put it here. just fell down, sorry. But The Alchemist is one of the only fiction books I basically read. And that book, I read it every single year a few times, and it's because it's such a great story. And it reminds me of like my childhood in the sense that I wanted to accomplish something that was very hard. I had to take risks, I had to follow my instinct, and I have to focus on what the end goal is, but also focus on the actual journey. That book is amazing. That book is beautiful. It's like I don't drink alcohol, but it's like I would imagine like a fine glass of wine. There you go. That's the best I can express it, okay? But those are the 5 books that I read all the time. Comment down below exactly what your favorite books are. I want to know. I want to copy them. I want to read them. I want to see them. And as always, like, subscribe, hit the bell so you get notified. The link to Audible is down below. I also have a course down below when it comes to financial freedom. And on top of that, up here is another video. Over here's my Facebook. Subscribe. And as always, Long Term Team officially out.